Hey guys, Second Lieutenant Brockborough here. In today's video, I'm going to go over the procedure and how you could possibly go to Airborne School after you graduate OCS. Now, this isn't a question I necessarily see very often posed in like the subreddit or even asked, but it is an option, and I don't think many people actually realize this. So I figured I'd bring it to people's attention that there is a possibility. That way, if time allows, you can actually capitalize on this and knock out Airborne School before you even go to BOLC. So right now, when I was going through OCS, there wasn't necessarily a procedure or protocol for OCs at HHC to really attend Airborne School. But while our class was as holdovers, the buddy of mine, the XO, Lieutenant Riley, he graduated with us. He kind of spoke with the chain of command and the battalion commander, and he was able to kind of solidify and consolidate a actual plan that allowed OCs, or actually at this point, second lieutenants, holdovers, to attend Airborne School if time allowed. So there's some prerequisites that I'll outline right now. Essentially, at the end of OCS, about week 10-ish, you're gonna get your RFO. Now, an RFO is basically just a tentative document that outlines, hey, you're gonna be attending BOLC at this date, and your report date is from here to here. So essentially, once you get that document, you're gonna know, hey, I have a month between my graduation and my report date at BOLC, so during that time, I'm gonna be a holdover. Now, this is all very branch dependent and when your classes are, when slots open are for BOLC. So I can't necessarily give you a when or how, because like I said, it's going to depend on the time you graduate, if there's any BOLC classes open, and your branch. But essentially, what they really want is they want to have second lieutenants at the time, holdover second lieutenants. You want to have at least maybe a month and a half kind of holdover status between your OCS graduation and your BOLC report date. So if you have that time, then the odds are, if you put in the work, you'll be able to go to Airborne School, because Airborne School is pretty short. It's only 3 weeks. So before you even hop into this Airborne School idea, or even, as a holdover, even ask about it to your chain of command, the first thing you're going to want to do is during your time as an OC, during week 8 to 12, you should really ask your cadre to see if you can take time out of the day to go get an Airborne Physical. Airborne Physical is pretty easy. It takes about an hour. They just, test your hearing. They test some other things. And, it's pretty quick, but you need that in order to even go to Airborne School. And while you're there, you might as well get a Ranger Physical as well. It's a little bit more in depth, but overall, it's a pretty quick process. Now, you're going to need both of these if you want to attend Ranger School or Airborne School. And as other second lieutenants can attest, or previous OCS candidates can attest, during the week 8 to 12 mark, you're not really busy. There's going to be a lot of downtime. So if you ask your cadre, they should be willing to let you go and get this completed. So let's say you do have your Airborne Physical, you checked your RFO, you got your orders, and you don't report until, you graduate February, and you don't report until, April or, May. So you have like 2 to 3 months as a holdover before you even report to BOLC. That's perfect. So what you're going to want to do is, first of all, they probably won't send you unless if you are putting in work as a holdover. And what I mean by this is, after you graduate, so everyone graduates on a Friday, so you get a weekend pass that following graduation where you can go anywhere within 250 miles, or even further if you talk to the holdover commander and ask for I think it's like a mileage pass or something like that. Anyway, so then you'll show up that Monday to PT as an official second lieutenant holdover, and they'll ask, or they might just assign, but sometimes they ask, you can volunteer for second lieutenants to work in the S3 shop. Sometimes it's like the S6. Some people will go down to brigade. Like for me, example, I went to brigade S3, and I worked as the lieutenant in charge for tracking COVID vaccination, COVID fragos, COVID policy, vaccinations across the board. So that included vaccinations for IBOLC, ABOLC, OCS, maybe NCO, and like international students. It was awful, but whatever. So you're gonna want to volunteer for this, because in order to, with a lot of things in the Army, you can't just receive. You have to give before you can receive. And this applies, that applies to the same thing here, where if you want to go to Airborne School, you're gonna have to demonstrate to, your chain of command, the commander, your superiors, that, hey, I'm willing to put in work, in maybe exchange, could you send me to Airborne School for 3 weeks? So, volunteer for the shops, volunteer to help out. If you don't, you can still probably go. The commander will occasionally send out details as a holdover. Otherwise, you're just going to be sitting in your room, which, is a blessing or a curse depending on the type of person you are. But, there'll be daily details that they want second lieutenants to help out with, like ACFTs, things like that. So essentially, the next step is really just to get in contact with your chain of command, the company commander of HHC, or talk to, the battalion chain of command, and see how feasible it is for you to go to Airborne School. And like I said, right now, it could change with the recent developments and change of, I think there's a new brigade commander. So the policy might have changed, but when we left, it was, you just needed at least like 3 to 6 weeks of holdover time, and then they would send you to Airborne School. So reach out to your chain of command and see if you can knock out Airborne School. And it's a really great way to start your career as a second lieutenant. I'm sure there will be opportunities in the future if you don't do Airborne School right off the bat. But from what I've heard, and I'm not necessarily saying this is true because it's all through, secondhand comments, but it's a little harder for officers to go to Airborne School, especially if your OCS doesn't really have a necessity for it. Like, for example, cyber guys, they were telling me that it was going to be really difficult because cyber doesn't really need the airborne qualification. So it would have been nice if I was able to knock it out. Unfortunately, I left pretty early. So that's Airborne School. It should be pretty cut and dry. You just ask your chain of command and they might send you. But the biggest thing is just to ask and make it known that you're willing to go and you're willing to put in work for that chance to go. Now for Ranger School, it's a little different. There has been some cases, I've only heard of one case actually, of someone actually going to Ranger School as a holdover, and it was another cyber guy, and it was because he helped out during his time as an OC. He was helping out his company commander. He had really good relationships. He worked hard. He was just a stud all around. So as a reward, they sent him. On top of that, during that time, because I think he was 2021 graduate, cyber had about a year and a half wait before they would even leave Fort Benning. Now they changed it a little bit for cyber, where they're sending us to Fort Gordon immediately. For example, I'm still a holdover. I won't have my bullet class until next year, so I have like a year-long wait as a holdover at Fort Gordon. But before, they were doing this process, but at Fort Benning. So he had a year and a half, so they sent him. He recently graduated, he passed, but that's the only time I've heard, and according to Cadre, that's the only time they've actually ever sent anyone to Ranger School. That being said, when I was working at Brigade, they did mention that if I had worked at Brigade for a couple months longer, they would have considered actually sending me. The major there was like, it's a leadership course. Ranger School is a leadership course. It's not like an infantry course, it's a leadership course. So they want everyone going. It's pretty useful for, vertical promotions, things like that. It's pretty well respected. It might not be necessary for someone like a cyber guy or a quartermaster or whatever, but it's still worth going in my opinion. So while I was there, he was like, yeah, you work here for a couple more months and we'll send you, just as long as you're not a shitbag. So odds are you probably won't get to go to Ranger School unless if you're going to be at, holdover for more than like 6 months. That being said, it never hurts to ask. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I got from my company commander, my captain, during my time as an OC was, in the Army, you have to kind of fight for yourself, where no one's going to be fighting for you. It's your life, it's your job. You take the best care of yourself. So if you want something, you have to make strides to tackle that. And this, I found this rang true, especially when, as I mentioned before, cyber was supposed to be waiting at Fort Benning for like a year and a half. But we kind of reached out, me and my other cyber buddy, who I graduated OCS with, we reached out and we're like, hey, this isn't gonna necessarily fly. Like we're trying to get to Fort Gordon as soon as possible because we want to start getting our foot in the door with certifications. We want to start kind of bedding down in the environment that we're going to be in. So, we reached out to our branch manager, we reached out to cyber division, we fought for ourselves. Now, if we didn't do that, we would still probably be at OCS right now, or, hold over. So it really does demonstrate that if you want something out of the Army, you have to fight for yourself. People are going to tell you, odds are you probably won't get it, but you never know if you don't try. And what's the hurt in asking? As long as you conduct yourself professionally, you're not jumping the chain of command, you're emailing the right people, you're being respectful, it doesn't hurt to ask. And, the payoff is greater than the risk. If you end up getting the chance to go to Ranger School, then, hell yeah, you got it, there you go. The worst that can happen is, no, sorry. So that's my recommendation, and kind of like an outline of, if you want to do Airborne School, put in the work at S3 as a holdover, do the details, and just reach out and bug your, company commander, chain of command. And I don't necessarily mean email them every day type of bug. I just mean just put it out there, let them know you're interested. There's already a procedure in place as of, February 2022. Unless that changes, with change of command, things like that, you should have the opportunity to go. And, prior enlisted will tell you, other people will tell you, it's definitely worth it. It's a good skill to have. It's fun. You get to jump out of planes. Like, it's fun. Anyways, that's the video. Future videos that I kind of have planned, or maybe something on land nav, specifically catered towards Red Diamond. Just some tips and tricks that I picked up as I went through it, especially with the change that's going on right now. Yeah, so stay tuned for those. Thanks for watching.